So over the last 24 hours, I've been fortunate enough to meet with Fujifilm to test out the X-T30 in Rome, and it's a camera that I've been really excited to get my hands on. Both the X-T10 and X-T20 were great examples of how a brand can take their flagship model, take out lots of its best features, place them into a smaller and more affordable body, and really create a device that's going to appeal to enthusiast shooters. But anyway, let's see how I've got on over the last 24 hours shooting some streets and travel photos here in Rome. Now, every image that you'll see in this video was taken with the X-T30 and one of its standard kit lens offerings, the Fujifilm 18 to 55mm OIS f2.8 to f4 standard zoom. And I have to say that from the start, this was a combination that really impressed me, meeting nearly all of my focal length and aperture needs for a lightweight travel setup, and only on occasion leaving me wanting a wider angle of view in my images. Now, of course, this lens is also stabilised for up to 4 stops of shake reduction, so while I did occasionally rest the camera on a wall for even greater stability, every shot featured in this video was taken without a tripod. And that's something that, if you like travelling light, I know that I do, will really appeal, particularly as the device doesn't have sensor-based stabilisation like the XH1 or some of its rivals. At the core of this camera is the back-illuminated 26.4 megapixel X-Trans CMOS4 APS-C size sensor and the X Processor 4. Both of these are found in the company's flagship X-T3, making it only the second device in the company's lineup to feature this arrangement despite its mid-market price tag. Together they produce pleasing detail, dynamic range and colour in images, something that I appreciated as the weather seemed to flick between bright and contrasty sun and more overcast conditions at the drop of a hat. This physical sensor size and relatively fast lens also made it possible to play with depth of field in my images, creating nice background blur when desired. Even at higher levels across the X-T30's 160 to 12,800 native ISO range, noise control was very good indeed, resulting in clean results even at the times I had to push it far further than its base level. Of course, being a Fuji, it has all of the brand's fantastic film simulation options to play around with. The end result, a set of images that I was happy with and didn't feel like I had to sacrifice quality on, despite keeping things fairly basic by leaving filters and multiple lenses at home. Weighing in at only 383 grams with battery and memory card fitted, the X-T30 is truly lightweight and at less than 12 centimeters at its longest dimension, compact too, perfect for a day spent treading the cobbles around an ancient city. Despite this, it feels very well built and surprisingly ergonomic in the hand. It does lack the weather sealing of the flagship X-T3, but it's that small you wouldn't need a lot of space to hide it quickly away from the elements in a sudden downpour, and it won't take up your entire hand luggage allowance on a flight. Between a front and rear control dial and the adjustable control ring on the attached lens, all major shooting settings were kept close to hand at all times. One major change over its forebear though is the addition of a joystick and the removal of a D-pad on its rear. Not only is this used for making standard menu selections, but it can also be utilised for moving the device's focus point quickly around the frame with it held to the eye. This is something that I loved, as with the alternative option to change this by touchscreen operation, my nose seemed to have different ideas to my head as to what I wanted to focus on. This aforementioned screen is a 3-inch 1.04 million dot tilt and touch display that I found adequate for a device of this size. It's paired with a 0.39-inch 2.36 million dot OLED viewfinder that, again, while not exactly market leading, was frustration free and does provide adapter for adjustment and a pleasing maximum refresh rate of 100 frames per second. A single card slot is unsurprising on a device at this price point, although it's worth noting that the X-T30 is only UHS 1 compatible currently. Battery life was quoted at a respectable 380 shots, but I pushed it well over this number and still had plenty in the tank. One nice feature for travel shooters is that this battery can also be charged in camera via its USB-C port with a portable power bank on the fly if needed. Unlike the X-T3, a pop-up flash can also be found on its top. Now, when it comes to the device's autofocus, I have to hold my hands up and say that most of what I shot during my time with the camera was fairly static, but both the continuous focus and single focus options seemed very fast and accurate, which did prove important when capturing my more street-focused images. The X-T30 has the same hybrid focus system as the X-T3, which is designed to cope with sports and wildlife subjects, so I guess that's fairly unsurprising. This focus system covers almost the entirety of the frame and provides up to 425 focus points, making it great for off-center composition. Thanks to a new feature that sounds like the title of a dance hit, non-stop phase detection, its focus speeds have been improved by a claimed 300% when transitioning between far to near or vice versa focus distances, according to Fujifilm. Even in low light, this camera didn't frustrate me once, something that I've not always found when reviewing mirrorless cameras over the years, or even older Fuji models. I'll often find myself down dark streets, inside old buildings, or wandering around at night during a trip away, but I'd be confident I could get the right results with this camera in my bag. The addition of a solid eye detection autofocus option is also an improvement over the X-T30, and I had more than a few opportunities to make use of it during my time with the camera. When it comes to burst shooting, the X-T30 is an interesting device. It's capable of a maximum 30 frames per second, but this is with an electronic shutter, 1¼ crop, and for a maximum of 17 RAWs. You lose that crop by dropping down to a speed of 20 frames per second, and the mechanical shutter becomes available at 8 frames per second. With the latter option chosen, you can capture 18 RAWs or over 90 JPEGs before performance takes a hit. What this means on a trip like this is that you have plenty of scope to respond to a fast-moving subject if you spot one, and stand a good chance of capturing them, although you probably won't want to make this device your main workhorse if you have a particular interest in sports or wildlife. I'm not going to dwell on video as it wasn't really my focus for this trip, but it's worth noting that the X-T30 does provide some fair options for this, if with a couple of little quirks. The camera can shoot non-cropped cinema 4K at 30 frames per second in 200 megabits per second 420 8-bit internal for up to 10 minutes, or 50 frames per second full HD for 15 minutes, both of which look reasonable quality. 422 10-bit can also be outputted to an external recorder. A dedicated mic input is present, but it's a 2.5mm rather than the more common 3.5mm option. And while there's no dedicated headphone input for audio monitoring, it is possible to do so with an adapter through the device's USB-C port. In short, for its target market, it's a very well-rounded device, but for dedicated videographers or hybrid shooters, the X-T3 will remain the much more interesting option. Like the X-T10 and X-T20 before it, the X-T30 is basically a baby version of the brand's current flagship, in this case the X-T3. As such, it adopts a highly respected sensor and processor and a very good autofocus system that for photos means it's capable of some fantastic results. Features more often associated with professional models such as burst shooting and video functionality, as well as the resolution of the EVF and tilt functionality of the rear display, have taken a bit of a knock. But for a much more affordable price tag and truly compact size, these may well prove to be very tempting sacrifices for the average enthusiast shooter. As a travel camera, it's certainly met my demands with aplomb, and I wouldn't hesitate to reach for it on a future trip away. The X-T30 will be available in 3 colour variations by the end of March. For more information about it, visit lcegroup.co.uk.